Richard believed in Emily's unwavering loyalty, but a cryptic text message would unravel everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and betrayal forever. How could one message change everything? The foundation of his world hung in the balance, and he had no idea what was coming. Richard stood in his modern, minimalist apartment, the aroma of garlic and herbs wafting through the air as he skillfully sautéed vegetables in a pan. The warm glow of the setting sun filtered through the large windows, casting a gentle light over the sleek furnishings and the carefully curated artwork that adorned the walls. He felt secure in his carefully crafted world, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Emily would be home soon, and tonight he planned to surprise her with dinner, a testament to their happiness together. While she was in the shower, the sound of water cascading echoed quietly through the apartment, a comforting backdrop to his culinary efforts. His gaze drifted to Emily's phone, resting innocently on the counter, the screen illuminated by a new notification. Against his better judgment, curiosity got the better of him. He approached the device, the glow of the screen capturing his attention. His heart skipped a beat as the words materialized. "I can't wait to see you again." They flickered in his mind like a flash of lightning, illuminating a chasm of insecurities he thought long buried. A trap door had opened beneath him, and doubt began to seep in like a cold draft on a winter's night. Richard's breath hitched. Disbelief knotted within him, coursing through his veins like ice. It must be a mistake, he tried to convince himself, yet a simmering hurt quickly turned into an insatiable rage. How could she? The questions piled up like unfinished tasks, ruthless reminders of his vulnerabilities. Should he confront Emily when she emerged from the shower, or dismiss the nagging thought as a misunderstanding? That had always been their agreement, hadn't it? Trust and communication, but nothing in his past prepared him for this moment, for the gnawing realization that the foundation of his relationship may have cracks he had never seen. Images of their laughter filled his mind, their shared intimacy swirling like the steam rising from the stove. The perfect life they built together now felt fragile, like fine china precariously balanced on the edge of a table. Each stolen moment of joy slammed into him, sharpening his internal conflict. The laughter echoed hollowly as doubt began its slow invasion. Richard wrestled with the weight of the message, his thoughts tangled in turmoil. The anticipation of confrontation began to gnaw at him, a predatory feeling that left a bitter taste in his mouth. He paced silently in the kitchen, knowing he had to wait until she was out of the shower, that he needed to pick the right moment, but time felt infinite. Heavy with anxiety, as the shower continued to roar, his mind raced, spiraling through possibilities and scenarios of deceit he had never imagined. Each thought sent a shiver down his spine, a haunting whisper of dreams turned to nightmares. What had he overlooked? Sudden uncertainty flooded through him, wrapping around his thoughts like a vice. Richard's hands trembled slightly as he stirred the vegetables, his heart racing in his chest. This moment, so seemingly mundane, could alter the trajectory of his life forever. Would he soon uncover the truth, or shatter a love he thought unbreakable? The sound of water poured over Emily, blissfully ignorant of the tempest raging in Richard's mind. As he prepared to summon his courage, the room pulsed with an unsaid question. What would happen when he finally confronted her? And what revelations awaited him? The day stretched before Richard like a desert, each hour dragging and burning in the sun of his growing paranoia. Nothing felt as it was supposed to anymore. Every interaction with Emily felt like a deceptive game of poker where neither of them was willing to show their cards. The laughter they once exchanged turned hollow. each shared joke becoming an awkward silence, punctuated by the tension in his chest. Richard noticed the subtle changes, the way she now looked at her phone more than him. The screen flickered with messages he couldn't see, and the distracted conversations left him wondering if she was truly present. It was as if he were watching her from behind a glass wall, yearning to break through yet fearful of what he might discover. Each time he caught her slipping away to type or scroll, a wave of suspicion crashed over him. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It became an obsession. With shaking hands, he began to track her online, infiltrating her social media, scouring mutual friends' posts for hints, searching for any sign, any whisper of infidelity. His heart raced at the thought of betrayal, each notification sharpening the knife of doubt lodged deep in his gut. In flashes of memory, he could see echoes of his past heartbreaks. Shadows of former relationships taunted him, reminding him of the painfully familiar sting of betrayal. The memories assaulted him, how those lies had pulled the rug from beneath his feet, leaving him gasping for air. He could feel the ghosts of his vulnerabilities creeping back, amplifying his fears. Dread settled in alongside the memories as he stared at her sleeping face, wondering how he could ever live with the pain of being deceived again. That night, he found himself at the bar with Alex, seeking solace in the friendliness of familiar surroundings, while attempting to maintain a brave facade. The dim lighting did little to mask the turmoil swirling within him. "Something's off with Emily," Richard confessed, his voice barely rising above the chatter. The cool foam of his beer offered little comfort. Alex leaned in, sincere concern etched in his brow. "Have you talked to her about it?" Alex asked, genuine yet cautious, knowing where such conversations often led. "I don't even know where to start," Richard admitted, his voice shaky. "The more time I spend with her, the more it seems like she's hiding something." Alex nodded, and Richard could see the wheels turning in his friend's mind. "I've been there, man. I know the feeling. It eats you up from the inside." The vulnerability Richard exposed hung thickly between them, his heart pounding against the walls he was trying to keep strong. The contrast to his earlier confidence was jarring. This was not the man who loved fiercely, who believed in openness. With every word exchanged, it was becoming clear how fragile his trust had always been. Richard wrestled with the demon of jealousy, battling uncertainties that crawled into his thoughts, fabricating sinister scenarios of what Emily might be doing. Was she meeting someone else? Did she laugh at his concerns and find someone less naive? Each contemplation felt like a tightening noose around his neck, squeezing the air from his lungs. The weight of guilt nestled comfortably alongside his emotions, forcing him to confront the ugly truth about his actions. He loved Emily, yet that love twisted painfully with the thorns of jealousy and mistrust, creating a moral struggle he couldn't resolve. Every time he thought of her, he felt the tug of conflict, both desiring to protect her and aching to ferret out whatever secrets she harbored. As evening shadows crept over his skin, Richard steeled himself. He was ready to confront Emily, to unravel the tangled threads of fear that bound them both. But just as he prepared to dive into the storm of their reality, his phone buzzed against the table. A new message. It was from her, and the words danced enticingly across the screen, hinting at complications he could scarcely imagine. As twilight settled like a blanket over the world, Richard felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The confrontation with Emily loomed ahead, a fragile thread of courage tugging at his heart. Yet, as he paced the dimly lit room, the passion he initially felt began to flicker, replaced by a smoldering sense of confusion. He cast aside doubt. He had to push through. They had shared so much, yet the intimacy that once surrounded them felt like a distant memory, now overshadowed by unspoken tension. His mind raced as he approached the door where Emily stood waiting. With each step, his thoughts spiraled. Could they come back from this? As he entered, an explosive mix of emotions filled the space between them, igniting his words. "We need to talk, Emily. I saw the messages." His voice quaked with intensity, a tide of accusations spilling forth. Emily's eyes widened in shock, her demeanor bracing for impact. "Richard, Don't," he interrupted, the heat of passion flaring, now tinged with despair. "You can't just brush this aside. Who is this person? What happened to trust?" Stung and defensive, Emily struggled to hold her ground. "It wasn't what you think. I swear it was just misguided. It never got physical, I promise." Her breakdown struck a chord deep within him. The sincerity in her voice pierced through the clamor of his accusations, causing him to momentarily falter. Misguided? What did that even mean? Forced to take a step back, he began to reflect on the isolation that had silently infiltrated their relationship. "Then what were you looking for?" he asked, his voice softened by a semblance of vulnerability. An openness remained, one that he had almost forgotten existed between them. Emily's gaze dropped, her shoulders sagging as a swell of emotion surged within her. "Everything feels like a performance, Richard. I'm tired of being the perfect partner. I need space to be me." Richard absorbed her words, the depths of her struggles hitting him with a tangible force. They had been so enmeshed in societal expectations, adhering to the roles that seemed predetermined, that they had neglected their own desires and identities. His heart tightened as he understood. This wasn't solely about betrayal. It was about the suffocating pressure to conform. As the walls began to peel away, bearing their insecurities, Richard realized how unseen and deeply rooted those insecurities were in the seemingly unshakable foundation of their love. "So, is this what we've become? Just two people trapped in a box, afraid to be real?" Her response hovered in the air, as raw and unfiltered as his own tumultuous feelings. "I don't want to lose you, but I can't continue like this. I need to reclaim who I am." Hot words clashed and drained between them, tension rising with each vulnerability shared. Richard felt a swell of emotions gushing within him, a longing for connection that now felt obscured by a fog of misunderstanding. Just as they began to find common ground, a sudden vibration jolted Richard back to the present. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a stark reminder of their fractures. Slipping it out, his heart raced as he saw the name on the screen, a final cryptic text from the anonymous number. The words blared at him, hinting that this might not be the only betrayal unfolding. He glanced up at Emily, a storm of questions swirling in his mind, but the realization that the night held more secrets left him suspended in uncertainty. What other revelations might lie just beyond reach? Richard paced his dimly lit living room, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him like a thick fog. Each memory of Emily felt tainted now, stained by the words exchanged in their earlier confrontation. He pressed his hands against his temples, trying to ward off intrusive questions. Was she truly faithful? Had he been blind to the signs all along? The air was thick with betrayal, and Richard felt suffocated by a mix of anger and despair. His phone buzzed on the table, snapping him from his spiral. It was Alex. Richard hesitated, but knew he needed someone to anchor him, to help untangle the mess that was his heart. "Hey, man, you okay?" Alex's voice was calm but probing, the kind of tone that demanded honesty. "Not really. Emily? I don't know what to think anymore." Richard's words tumbled out, laced with frustration. "Did I ever really know her?" "You're projecting," Alex replied firmly. "You can't just blame her for how you feel. What about your own insecurities? Have you thought about that?" Richard clenched his jaw, the challenge sparking an inner conflict. Alex always had a way of pushing him to confront his vulnerabilities. I mean, maybe you're right. But should I trust her? How can you just ignore the doubts? Trust is built, not given, Alex insisted. You need to look at yourself in this. What are you afraid of? Losing her or losing yourself? The question pierced through Richard's defenses. He took a deep breath, sitting down on the edge of the couch. I never thought I'd feel like this, like I'm not enough. Meanwhile, across town, Emily sat on her bed, her sister's voice barely breaking through the haze of her own turmoil. You need to find out who you are without Richard, her sister had urged. What do you want for yourself? Emily sprawled on the covers, unable to provide an answer. Their relationship had entwined her identity in ways that now felt stifling. I don't know, she muttered to herself. I thought I was being true to me. The tension of their lives wove through both of them, each grappling with the fragility of who they had become together. Richard's heart began to race at the realization that he had been so focused on Emily's alleged betrayal, he neglected his struggle to maintain his own individual identity. Had he merged so completely with her that he had lost sight of what made him him? Flashbacks surged through his mind. The moments of jealousy, the shadow of past failures in his relationships, voices of doubt that echoed. Each misstep replayed like a film reel, highlighting all the times he had allowed his insecurities to shield his heart, leading to this moment of self-doubt. Suddenly, Richard understood that this was not just about Emily. It was about him confronting his own past mistakes. Forgiveness and understanding loomed ahead. But were they possible? Emily, too, felt the undercurrents of redemption stirring. She bit her lip, recalling the times she held back, not wanting to lose what she thought was a perfect bond. Flaws began to emerge from the shadows, cracking the idealized image she had of herself and Richard. As both Richard and Emily navigated their parallel journeys of realization, they were unearthing profound vulnerabilities. But as Richard resolved to approach Emily with this newfound understanding, the sudden vibration of his phone jolted him back to reality. A notification flashed on the screen, a name that sent a chill down his spine. It was a message revealing a connection between Emily and his business rival. Richard's heart dropped, unraveling the thin threads of clarity he had just begun to weave. His breath hurried, thoughts racing. Was this another betrayal? Or had he become ensnared in a complicated game without even realizing it? Could he piece together his chaotic emotions? Or would they lead him deeper into doubt? The uncertainty hung heavily in the air, a question lingering on the precipice of his mind. As Richard settled into the well-worn chair at the cafe, fragments of doubt danced in his mind, each one a dissonant note in the melody of his memories with Emily. The betrayal felt like a gut punch, not just from her, but from a world he had thought was dependable. Friends became shadows, their laughter now tinged with suspicion. He thought back to the camaraderie shared over late-night talks. Had it all been a facade? The weight of uncertainty pushed him to arrange this meeting. It was a decision steeped in anxiety, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed closure, perhaps even clarity. The irony stung. He was seeking answers from the very person who'd shattered his trust. Taking a breath, Richard fought against his instincts, urging him to turn back, reminding himself that facing the truth, however painful, was preferable to lingering in doubt. As Emily arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Their eyes met, but it was different now, charged with a tension that spoke volumes of unspoken words. She offered a tentative smile, yet it felt heavy, laden with the weight of what lay between them. They exchanged pleasantries, but the conversation felt contrived, as if they were performers in a play, losing their grasp on the script. "How have you been?" she asked, her voice almost soft. But Richard couldn't miss the tremor beneath. It echoed in his chest, igniting a flicker of warmth that battled with icy skepticism. "About as well as can be expected," he replied, struggling to keep his tone neutral. The stark reality of their situation crushed the once easy flow that had marked their every conversation. Each shared glance exchanged over coffee held the gravity of 1,000 unmentioned fears and regrets, both of them acutely aware that trust, once a solid foundation, had become a fragile illusion. As they spoke of mundane things, the weather, the latest news, each triviality felt like a thin veil, barely concealing the storm swirling beneath. Richard found himself oscillating between yearning for the connection they once had and wrestling with his burgeoning doubt. He had to know if their past partnership had left any room for redemption in the wake of infidelity. Emily, sensing his turmoil, tried to bridge the chasm. "I've been working a lot, you know. There were some tough choices to make," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. It was both a plea for understanding and an admission of the pressures she faced. Richard leaned back, frustration rippling under the surface. How could she talk about her ambitions when the fabric of their lives had begun to unravel? The third-person limited perspective allowed him to see her desperation, and yet he felt trapped, caged in a life he once believed to be a partnership, now reduced to a power struggle colored by betrayal. "I know you've been busy," he said curtly, feeling the tone of their conversation shift, deeper into a territory he was hesitant to explore. "But can we really just gloss over what happened?" The air between them thickened with emotion, haunting memories emerging with swirling clarity. Richard sensed the delicate threads of their past intertwining with the present, a bittersweet reminder of what they had lost. Just as he geared up to push past the restless doubts and demand honesty, the shrill ping of a text message echoed through the cafe, cutting through the moment. He glanced down at his phone, reality crashing in, a reminder of the complex web of relationships surrounding him, the very thing he had hoped to navigate smoothly today. His heart raced. Who could it be? Would this new message shatter whatever fragile equilibrium they might find? Or would it illuminate a path forward? The narrative tightens as Richard finally confronts Emily, the air crackling with tension. He stands in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows on their shared memories. Each picture on the wall whispers stories of laughter and love that now feel hollow. "Why didn't you ever tell me about Patrick?" Richard's voice breaks through the silence, raw and edged with pain. Emily looks startled, her wide eyes betraying the frantic thoughts racing through her mind. "I didn't think it mattered," she shoots back defensively, clutching her arms as if to shield herself from his accusations. "He's just a business rival. It was nothing." "Nothing?" Richard interrupts, stepping closer, vulnerability draping over him like a heavy cloak. "You could have talked to me. Instead, you chose to keep secrets, and it took a message to make me realize you weren't being honest." The confrontation escalates, each word exchanged like a knife, carving deeper into the heart of their relationship. With every accusation, both their masks slip, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. "Maybe it wasn't just about Patrick." Emily's voice wavers, a mix of anger and desperate sorrow. "There's been so much pressure, Richard. Between work, family, and this? How could I possibly bring you into that? I didn't want you to see me fall apart." Richard's expression softens momentarily, his heart aching for the woman standing before him, fragmented like shattered glass. "But we were supposed to be a team," he exclaims, his emotions swirling within him. "You may have thought you were protecting me, but your silence built a chasm between us. I felt excluded from your struggles, and I don't even know you anymore. Silence envelops them, thickening like fog as they grapple with the weight of unspoken truths. Their arguments dance around deep-seated betrayals and regrets, each revealing the failures not just as partners, but as individuals. Richard takes a breath, gathering courage. What scared you so much about being honest with me? His voice is steady now, a plea for connection beneath the tumult of their emotions. Emily's defenses falter. I thought if I could just keep going, keep us afloat, we'd figure it out. I was scared of what telling you would mean. I didn't want to burden you with my fears. A glistening tear escapes down her cheek, reflecting the pain of years held captive in silence. Richard's thoughts shift, unraveling the frustrations he hid behind anger. He suddenly sees their relationship from her perspective. We created this silence, he admits softly. I should have asked how you were feeling instead of jumping to conclusions. I was so caught up in my own insecurities. As their barriers begin to crumble, nostalgic memories flash before them. A quiet evening spent on the couch, belting out their favorite songs. Kitchen chaos filled with laughter over a failed dinner. Each recollection intertwines the tension with a thread of opportunity for healing, lighting their tangled hearts. Just as the possibilities for reconciliation begin to weave between them, Richard's phone buzzes again, a sharp jolt pulling him back to reality. He glances at the screen, the breaths they are sharing heavy with anticipation. And suddenly, all he feels is tension. What now? Emily asks, her voice low and cautious, sensing the shift. Richard's heart sinks. The message is there, an intrusion that shatters the fragile moment they had begun to rebuild. He hesitates, the weight of emotional burdens pressing down once again. What new conflict lies ahead? The last fading glimmer of hope flickers as he opens the notification, leaving an unsettling question in the air. Richard sits frozen, the light from the phone illuminating his face as he processes their exchange. The air between him and Emily crackles with unspoken truths, the heaviness of emotions shifting their focus from the immediate hurt to the complex nature of love and trust. Gone are the days of blindness. The reality they face magnifies the importance of honest communication. Richard, Emily starts softly, her voice trembling just enough to betray her steely facade. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you and myself. He shakes his head, the hurt bubbling back up inside. Protecting me? Or hiding the truth? I don't want to live in a world where I'm constantly questioning the people I care about. There's a flicker of guilt in her eyes, something that melts the resentment clenching his heart. You're right. I was afraid of being inadequate. To be honest, I didn't know if I could ever meet your expectations. Richard feels the sting of her vulnerability. Beneath the pain, he wishes to comfort her, recognizing that they are both standing on the precipice of their selves, neither of them truly whole. We both have our fears, Emily. I thought I could trust you, and when that shattered, I felt like I lost part of myself. His own voice falters, revealing the cracks in his armor. But maybe, just maybe, we're not what we thought. The tension intertwines them like a brittle thread, each confession a step toward understanding. They can see each other, really see each other, beyond the facades they wear. Emily takes a shaky breath, her resolve fragile yet fierce. If we're being honest with ourselves, maybe we've outgrown this connection. I want to explore who I am outside of this. Richard swallows hard. Every instinct tells him to fight for what they have, yet he recognizes the same desire within himself. I think we need to let go, not just of each other, but of the expectations, burdens, and the scars from this. There is a sense of liberation in that realization, a bittersweet acceptance, keeping his heart heavy yet hopeful. Finally, a tenuous agreement passes between them, an acknowledgement of their imperfections and an understanding that their paths are diverging. Maybe in the exploration, we'll find our truths, Emily whispers, her voice steadying now, though her eyes shimmer with unspilled tears. Richard nods, feeling a sense of emotional growth take root within him. The future stretches before him like an open road, uncertain, yet full of potential. He takes a step back, physically and emotionally, allowing the space to breathe. I need to figure out who I am without us. This has changed me. Emily smiles through the mist of sadness, recognizing the weight of his words. Me too. And I'll always cherish what we had, Richard. But just as the warmth of their newfound understanding wraps around them, Richard's phone buzzes again, a cold intrusion that shatters the fragile moment. He turns to the screen, the color draining from his face as he reads the text, a message that hints at a direct link to his childhood past. No longer is it merely about betrayal. This is a revelation that ignites a new arc of uncertainty. What does this mean? Emily asks, stepping closer, confusion and concern in her voice. Richard's heart races as uncertainty courses through him, overshadowing the fragile peace they had just built. I don't know, he manages to say, his mind racing with an avalanche of possibilities. The unease wraps around him, binding him to a past he thought he had left behind. And as their eyes meet, the tension rises once more, a poignant cliffhanger hanging in the air, leaving the question echoing. What does the final shocking text mean for Richard's future? The uncertainty promises further turmoil, yet it also hints at growth and the potential for new beginnings. Richard stands at the precipice of a new understanding, the weight of the past pressing heavily against his chest. As he replays the events that led him here, each moment of laughter, each whispered promise, he feels a wave of realization wash over him. It is as if every choice he's made, every blind spot he's embraced regarding trust, comes rushing forward to demand acknowledgement. The betrayal surges like a tide, reshaping the landscape of his heart. Richard had thought he knew Julia. He had believed in the warmth of her smile and the softness of her words. But with the revelation of that text message, he finds himself questioning everything. What echoes from his past had blinded him to the reality unfolding before him. His mind spirals back through memories dotted with innocence and naivety. Trust, he muses, is a fragile web spun from past experiences. It can shimmer beautifully or snap under pressure. How seldom did he consider the shadows beneath its surface? Would he have recognized the signs if he hadn't been so focused on the future they had planned together? As the stillness envelops him, the thought strikes him. Was he always destined to repeat this cycle of misplaced trust? Or could this be a chance to rebuild? In that moment of introspection, he feels the stirrings of resilience. Maybe this is about more than just betrayal. Perhaps this journey could redefine how he relates to others. He pauses and glances around, as if the empty room could offer comfort, solace for his turmoil. It is time for him to speak not only to himself, but to anyone who has shared this road. Have you ever faced a situation that transformed your view on trust? The question echoes in his mind, waiting to leap onto the screen, longing for connection. He realizes how many stories must be woven among the viewers, tales of hardship that echo through their own hearts. Reading their responses could help him feel less alone, less burdened by his thoughts. He wants to know, how did they navigate their way through betrayals? How had those experiences reshaped their relationships? In inviting this dialogue, he hopes to turn this moment of pain into a bridge for connection. Richard's thoughts shift to how each person might tackle discovering such a betrayal. Would they confront their partner, fueled by anger or devastation? Or would they seek understanding? An approach rooted in curiosity? He isn't sure what the right path is, but he feels a deep desire to listen to others' perspectives. If you found value in Richard's story and the lessons of trust it reveals, Richard finds himself whispering softly into the void of the screen. Please hit that like button and subscribe. Each story, each lesson deserves to be shared. He takes a deep breath, knowing this is more than an endpoint, but rather a step forward. Thank you for joining me on this journey through trust and betrayal. Until next time, keep learning and reflecting. And remember, every experience is a lesson. We're all in this together. In those final moments, Richard feels a dawning hope that perhaps he has transformed, just as the connections beyond his screen could also evolve into something beautiful, crafted from the ashes of deceit.